My stand-up career started off kind of from a bit of happenstance. I had a near-death experience. When I thought I was going to die, I said if I do survive, I'm going to do two things. My only two regrets in my life. I'm going to learn how to ride a motorcycle, and I'm going to take a comedy class because I always wanted to perform. And so I did.
Sure.
So at 29, I did my first comedy class, and 6 weeks after that, my graduation at comedy class was in the Comedy Store, which is a very famous venue out here in Los Angeles. And that kind of started off when it went because, like Ian Fleming said, you only live twice. Once when you're born and once when you stare death in your face. And so that was kind of like the run for that. 10 years going international, performed live comedy in Australia and Canada and Italy, and just being able to share my perspective was a lot of fun, but I had to get nudged by fate thinking I was going to die.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Adeptus On-Air. I am again your host, Mike Hoffman, and today I am joined by the multifaceted Flobo Boyce. How you doing, buddy?
To say I'm doing okay is kind of an understatement. I'm on your show. I'm among the luminaries that have been on this podcast.
You hit the big time now.
Yeah, baby.
So, I was thinking about how I wanted to take this, and then, I look at all the different things that you do. You're a writer, video editor, you run marathons, you've done stand-up comedy, you've officiated weddings, you've been a ring announcer for professional wrestling, you're a Mesoamerican and Caribbean history buff, a brand management enthusiast, a social media junkie, a mobile DJ. I don't even know what to say.
It's funny. You found some things that people kind of forgot about, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, good. I will say this. When I was doing a little research before I came on, I went on Amazon just to kind of read the bio of your book, Graduation Day. And I got to tell you, it sounds like we'll start there. It sounds like a pretty interesting theory behind it. Why don't you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started off as a fiction writer, and my last book before Graduation Day was one that I didn't do too well. It was called Pay the Vig, and it was too expensive. It took me so many years to write, and I was done. I was like, writing's for the birds. Who gives? But the pandemic came, and I said, look, if I'm going to retire, if I'm going to graduate, I want to write a memoir, and I want to be able to give people advice that were graduating college that I never got when I graduated. So when I graduated college, I guess almost 20 years ago now, yikes. My
Don't say yikes, because I don't tell you how many years I graduated college.
I'm just saying that one day you look around and you aren't the kid in the room anymore. You're the guy, you're the old guy, you're the veteran,
Yeah, I know.
My commencement speaker was kind of underwhelming. Some schools got like Conan O'Brien and Oprah Winfrey and Nobel Peace Prize and poet laureates, and I got a guy who managed a Walmart. No disrespect to him, but it wasn't quite the same.
Yeah.
And so I decided
not exactly what you wanted to hear.
Exactly. I wanted someone to tell me actionable things. And so, to be fair, Graduation Day is basically chapters of my failures that I went through as an adult, but at the end of it were the life lessons that I apply to anyone, and I would tell anybody if given the chance.
Yeah, it's funny because you're absolutely right. And what I actually enjoy sometimes, if I'm, this just kind of shows how fun a person I am. I'll go on YouTube and I'll kind of watch certain graduation speeches, but you're right. The ones I want to hear, like, I have some vividly in my head that I've listened to over the years. Ellen DeGeneres gave a classic one at Tulane. Lisa Kudrow gave an awesome one talking about, how the Friends all came about.
Jim Carrey.
Michael Keaton gave a great one. So, I actually enjoy those because A, they're entertaining, and B, they are still life lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. But I didn't get that at all. So I made my own. And so the last chapter is actually a commencement speech, which I would have said had my college asked me to do it. So it's kind of
like there's still time.
Yeah, there's still time. Absolutely.
What college did you attend?
Undergrad, I did Flagler College. I was a broadcast communication major over there. Nice. And then I went to Chapman University for my MFA in film production.
Nice. Yeah, I can tell you now, 30 years later, I do not remember my commencement speaker either. So yeah, I don't even know who it was. And I went to a big school. I went to Penn State, so you figure they might get someone. I don't remember for life.
Yeah, Nittany Lions, right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna get to sports in a minute. Like I said, we're gonna little teaser. Me and you have something very much in common.
Oh, cool.
So we're gonna get to that. So let's talk about some of the things that I kind of mentioned before, because while some of them go together, they are kind of in all different areas. And I'm always fascinated. One of the things, and I've had a few on before, are stand-up comedians, because I just love the mindset and what it takes to be a stand-up comedian. So kind of walk through, that part of your life.
My story is a little different because when I was a kid, I loved the Tonight Show. So I'm of a certain age. I'm going to be 40 in June. So I
Hmm.
grew up with Jay Leno. Jay Leno was my
Okay.
Tonight Show. I mean, people love Carson, people love Fallon, but Leno was my guy.
Hmm.
I wanted to do that, but my stand-up career started off kind of from a bit of happenstance. I had a near-death experience. So,
Wow.
taking a step back, I was morbidly obese. I lost 150 pounds and I got the surgery to remove some skin. I had some complications and I almost bled
Wow.
out on my couch when I was recovering. And so when I thought I was going to die, I said, if I do survive, I'm going to do two things. My only two regrets in my life. I mean, everyone has small regrets. I wish I asked her out. I wish I made more money. But the
Yeah.
big two regrets was I'm going to learn how to ride a motorcycle and I'm gonna take a comedy class because I always wanted to perform. And so I
Yeah.
did.
Sure.
So at 29, I did my first comedy class. And 6 weeks after that, my graduation at comedy class was in the Comedy Store, which is a very famous venue
Hmm.
out here in Los Angeles. And that kind of
Yeah.
started off when it went because, like Ian Fleming said, he wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, he wrote James Bond. It was you only live twice, once when you're born and once when you stare death in your face. And so that was kind of like the run for that 10 years
Yeah.
going international, performed live comedy in Australia and Canada and Italy, and just being able to share my perspective was a lot of fun. But I had to get nudged by fate, thinking
All
I was
right.
going to die.
So going through the class, you know, what do they talk about? I mean, they're not giving you material, so obviously the material still has to come from your creative side.
Yeah.
Is it more about the delivery and about the presence, and then you kind of have to figure out what you're going to say when you get up there?
So there's a lot of comedy classes that try to teach you mechanics and say
Mhm.
set up premise, and they exist, and I like that. But I don't think that would have worked for me. My
Mhm.
teacher, Adam Barnhart, who actually like trained like Tash Lagar and all that, was really about finding your voice and perspective. Like
Okay.
you can learn how to do setups and punchlines from books and old movies and roast and Rodney Dangerfield or whatever have you.
Mhm.
But at the same time, when someone buys a ticket to see you, what can you offer from a perspective that's different? So I would say most of those classes are more about getting the piece of your on-stage persona shared out with them, the audience.
And how was it your first time up there? Like, how did it go?
It was the best night of my life. So I was nervous. I was nervous at all, but the guy before me had bombed. And I go, oh man, like the crowd, the Comedy Store is booing you. I didn't
Yeah.
think boos were possible,
Yeah.
but they said my name. Please welcome Flobo Boyce, and it was a very fruitful audience. Most of my friends were in the crowd; they're more
Yeah.
into just cheering me on. But when I heard someone announce my name and I go through the curtain, it really felt like it was something I was meant to do. Yeah, it wasn't perfect. I look at the video now; it's on YouTube. It's 3 minutes
Yeah.
long. The jokes aren't funny to me now today, which I guess is a good sign. But I really felt for the first time in my life that I was doing something that may not have been on my when I grow up, I wanted to do
Yeah.
something, but really felt like it was meant for me.
And you know something? People go to comedy shows, they want you to be funny. They don't want to boo someone off the stage. So they're, probably after a bad set, they're probably clamoring.
Yeah.
They're clamoring for you to be good.
Right.
So
Please be good.
that they want to laugh. You want to leave that place like with your stomach hurting from laughing so hard.
Absolutely. They're on dates. They bought two drinks. They had to pay how much money for
Damn
parking?
2 drink minimum every time. I used to hate that because I'm not a drinker. I'd like spend all this money on like 2 damn Cokes.
Right.
So I love so you still into comedy now, or are you still a fan?
Well, I would say that everything I do now has a humor through line. I know you're about to ask about how did I get into so many different things, but to me, it's all about levity. It's all about delivering that. So
Yeah.
even though the stage work hasn't been as much as it has in years past, I'm not saying it's over. Even though I
Hmm.
had a retirement show because that's how you get people to show up to a concert. You
Of
have
course.
the farewell tour.
Hey,
I
how
will
many
say,
famous people retire and unretire, retire, unretire?
yeah, I'm a wrestling fan. It happens all the time in wrestling. But the idea is that wherever I work on, I try to put some humor, some levity into that.
Yeah. All right. So you're all right, so you're a wrestler. So some would call wrestling a form of comedy.
Can't be.
It's entertainment, but it's comedy. So I haven't watched wrestling in probably 20 years.
You're missing
But
out, man. What are
no, but
you doing?
I grew up a fanatic. And I'm about 10 years older than you, but yeah, I mean, I remember the first WrestleMania,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, I remember getting together with my friends to watch the first one. Pay-per-view was like $20. We all had to like, get $5 together to watch it, order
Yeah.
pizza. So yeah, so I remember back in those days, back when Hulk Hogan beat the Iron Sheik to win the title. So that was probably a period from when I was like maybe 7 or 8 until like I went off to college. The wrestling was huge for us.
Yeah.
And at that point, you still didn't know if it was real or fake. You heard the rumors, but it was never, they never acknowledged it was fake. And they used to actually get mad, when they were ever interviewed about it being fake. Now, obviously, they acknowledge it and they recognize themselves in public as actors and, athletes, but actors. So it's really evolved over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm from, well, you are too. I'm from, the New York area where
Yeah,
our local wrestling federation became the wrestling
that's right.
federation on the planet, which almost never happens if you think about
Right.
other regions out there. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why, at the time, who owned it, Vince McMahon, who's since stepped down, was
Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, look, it's entertainment. It was to skirt the athletic commissions. They're all run by the mob. They're all about kickbacks and bribery at the time. So they said, look, we don't do that. We do entertainment. But that said, that is our Shakespearean theater in the round. That is our kabuki dance theater.
Mm-hmm.
It's so big now. I love the Attitude Era that from the 90s, late 90s, where it was kind of big trash TV. The
Mm-hmm.
stuff now, the athleticism now just blows the 90s
Yeah.
and even the early 90s out of the water. And so I understand if you're like, hey, I was a kid, I loved it, I'm walking away. But if there's ever a time to get back into it, it's
Yeah.
now.
I mean, I can tell you some of the big names, and I'm not going to say I don't see clips, as he pops up on social media all the time. But I mean, some of the storylines just got to me. I think when they acknowledged that it was entertainment,
Mhm.
it kind of changed a little bit my perception. I kind of always knew it was, but now some of the storylines are just, and they were started getting that way when I kind of was still into it. Some of the storylines now are just like crazy.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. No, I'm with you 100%. Like my dad was in the same boat. My dad is in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
When he came to this country in the 1970s, he never really felt like he was like American. He kind of felt like he was an outsider. But
Yeah,
when the Garden had these events, and his guy was Chief Jay Strongbow. When he saw Chief
of
Jay
course.
Strongbow
Yeah,
and people were cheering him on, and he felt like he was a Brooklynite. He felt like he was a New Yorker. He felt like he was an American. No one cared where you were from. You all had the same objective at Madison Square Garden. So I hear you. I totally
the
understand.
sleeper hold.
Yeah, exactly. You've been there.
Come on, Chief Jay with the sleeper hold. Yeah, I remember a lot of the wrestlers actually lived in the next town over. So I
Oh,
remember at a high school basketball game, we played we were playing another school, and I think it was Don Morocco. Remember
yeah,
the
yeah,
magnificent
yeah.
Morocco? His son was playing, so he was in the corner, in the gym, just like trying to like not be noticed because that's when he was big.
Right, the
But
hoodies
these
on the
guys are
head.
huge. Yeah, but these guys are just humongous. So it's hard for him not to be noticed. I think at one other match, I think Pedro Morales was at we saw him at one of the matches. I know Hogan. I never saw Hogan around, but Hogan lived, in the next town over because again, it was all this area. And while it was going national, it was still pretty big. Every month the Garden had that big. Once a month they had they had the matches, and
Yeah,
that's every week,
absolutely.
and every month was the title was up for grabs, the Intercontinental, the tag team, and it was every month there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really when I went to my first garden show, my brother took me. My dad didn't
Mm-hmm.
go, but he was kind of like jealous. He was like, man, I gotta go to work tonight, but you have a good time. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Because it
yeah,
was massive back then.
yeah. So who were some of your favorites back then?
Well, when I was a kid, when I first started getting into wrestling, the big three to me, you're gonna love this: Razor Ramon, Tatanka, and Duke the Dumpster Drozy. Remember him? Like,
No, I know the first two. That name I doesn't even sound familiar to me. I was obviously out of it. Yeah,
no, well, not even because I didn't have cable, so I watched Superstars and Wrestling Challenge. They
yeah.
were kind of like the weekend, like lower class shows,
Mm-hmm.
and they were trying to like hop up a lot of the guys that we'll call jobbers now or lower mid card guys. But Duke the Dumpster Drozy, his whole thing was he was a garbage man. And
Yeah,
who wrestled, and I was like, he has to be so strong if he is a garbage man and
yeah,
he
yeah, yeah,
wrestles.
yeah,
And as a kid, you just bought into that. And it's funny because we had this discussion because I'm also a baseball guy. There's always one like journeyman when you're a kid you love
yeah,
who isn't that great, but you're like, that's my guy, you
yeah.
know?
My favorite growing up was George the Animal Steel,
Oh, yeah.
and from what I gather, I don't know if it's true or not. I was told he was a college professor. So he was
Really?
like, apparently, I should probably Google this now and check. I haven't thought about this in years. So he's probably a brilliant man. But
Oh, yeah.
then his act, he was a bumbling whatever, no brain, eating the turnstiles. And he, to me, just was fun to watch. Like, I look forward to seeing him out there.
I'm glad you said that because entertainment, and then whether it's wrestling
Mhm.
or comedy
Yeah.
or anything, it takes a certain kind of self assurance to play
Yeah.
dumb or to play savage.
Agreed.
So if you are, it's like you're serious, but like if you are clocking into work and doing that and clocking out, you know there's another whole story behind that person performing that role.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of actors and actresses have said that some of their biggest challenges is playing someone stupid
Mm-hmm.
or being an airhead because they're obviously not that way. You know, and on the flip side, you've heard people saying, I'll go back to one of my favorite shows, which is The Big Bang Theory,
Oh yeah,
and those guys talk about how hard it was to be so smart on the show because
yeah.
they had to memorize like these 5 or 6 sentences that they had to sound like they knew it because they were experts in whatever it was, the physics or the string theory. And he goes, I have no idea what I'm saying. So to me, it's just random word, random word, random word put together, and I got to make it sound like I'm intelligent.
I just want to say, as a Green Lantern fan, the fact they got a lot of that stuff wrong ticked me off about that show. So maybe I'm the nerd.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. Oh, so you from that perspective, you're saying they got a lot of it wrong.
They got a lot of it wrong, but it's a good thing because if you didn't know that particular, I didn't know anything
Yeah,
about string theory. I knew about Green Lantern comics, but yeah, everything else sounded legit to me. But you're saying
yeah,
that that's something you have to go with your research. Take the
yeah.
time to learn something and then make it present in a way people can digest. And
Yeah. So
that is
yeah, Green Lantern, all that. I never got into like the Marvels or comics. So to me, that aspect of it, and even Star Wars, to this day, I've never seen a Star Wars movie.
yeah, that's worth it. But who's a superhero? Like every kid had a superhero. Were you Superman? Were you Batman?
When I was really young, the show that was on TV was Batman.
Okay,
And I'm
that's just
talking the original Batman,
yeah, the white
Adam West and Burt Ward, with the
yeah.
bong, clong, kablong. That's what that's what I watched. And then I actually remember seeing the original Superman movies in the theaters. I mean, Christopher Reeve, movies. But back then, I had no interest in Star Wars. Just to me, it was just too far fetched. And I guess I had more of a literal mind.
Yeah.
So to me, to see this like robot flying a spaceship, it just wasn't my thing. And my friends were fanatics. So I remember them all going and me like literally choosing to stay home by myself
Right.
just because I'm like, I'm not watching this.
No, neither am I. But I'll give you a story. When I graduated undergrad and moved out west and went to grad school, my intro to film theory was Tom Mankiewicz, who wrote the original Superman, so Superman
Okay.
78. That was Christopher Reeve or what have you. And
Mm-hmm.
he said that was the hardest part of taking something that was so beloved, that meant
Yeah.
so many different things, rest in peace for him right now, to that people loved, and make it in a way that's accessible to those and the new generation as well.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I remember watching when they did the first remakes of the Batman movies. So the Michael Keaton one.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing that. I went to the theaters because that was such a big hype coming into that. So I remember watching that, and then even I probably saw the second one. I think the second one was the one with
Dan DeVito.
like, yeah. And then, but after that, then it was like every time Batman kept changing, Christian Bale, whoever it was, Ben Affleck. I can't do that in my head. I have trouble watching the same franchise if it's a different person playing the. Like James Bond was okay. James Bond changed after
Wait,
20
why is
movies.
James Bond different?
Yeah, but it wasn't like different every movie. It was 20 movies. The guy got old, he retired, new guy, did it for 15 years, and I was okay with that. But the Batman, it seemed like every movie was a new Batman.
Fair, fair, fair.
And I couldn't get into that character being, different all the time.
I'll give you that, but I'm like, hey, if they don't want to change it, it's definitely James Bond. He's like Shamu when it comes to movies.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, and how many movies were there, but how many Bonds? So when you think about that, it's a good ratio.
Do you have a favorite Bond at all? I'm just curious.
Believe it or not, I'm gonna say two come to mind, and I might even have the wrong ones from what I like. For Your Eyes Only,
Okay.
and I forget if it was Octopussy or a different one. But I remember that one comes to my mind.
So Roger Moore guy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was the originals. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Towards the end of Roger Moore, probably. Yeah, but yeah, I was a Roger Moore guy.
Fair enough.
But we need to talk about something else that I saw in here that this could be a whole hour just talking about this, and I'm pronounce. I'm just gonna say it in 4 letters. LFGM.
Let's go.
Because when I saw that, I'm like, there aren't too many people out west that root for my beloveds.
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to clear it out now, but if you my phone, I don't know if you can see it. It's Sean
yeah,
Mania
Kalmanaya.
doing the tribal chief pose, the finger up in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where when I was a kid, talk about loving a journeyman. I was a bigger kid growing up, so I was really enamored with Benny
I was gonna
Agbayani.
say when you said that, I was gonna
Yeah.
guess him.
Yeah, he was my guy growing up. But it's funny
Good.
because my parents are immigrants, right? And my parents
Mhm.
came from Barbados, which is an island of the Caribbean, South Caribbean, and it's a cricket nation. And
Mhm.
so my dad, when he moved up here, had both teams on. He had both
Yeah.
teams on. It's like, look, it's American cricket. We're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
What's this? But I chose the Mets early because more people look like me. Butch Husky, Bernard Gilkey, Mo Vaughn,
Yeah. Yeah.
Cleon Jones was before my time, but that
Oh yeah,
was
of course.
Doc Gooden. Like, it was kind of like, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
these are like people who look like me who are doing baseball. And I've been a fan ever since. And so
Hmm.
what's cool about the Mets now is that even though the Yankees are a prolific team, I've traveled 11 countries on the planet. If I see somebody with a Mets cap, they have some connection to New York. Whether
Yeah.
I'm from New York, my grandma was there, or I lived in England, but I
Right.
was on a layover in LaGuardia for an hour.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
some connection to that city. That means the world when you're like homesick. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
leaned into it. I've worked with the Black
Yeah.
Basil mixtape. I've worked with Mets Digest. I've just be able
Yeah.
to push the word.
Anyway, which is true because you'll see people here who will wear a Dallas Cowboy hat,
Oh,
and they've never been in Texas. It's just
exactly.
that was the team to root for when they were younger, and the Yankees were very similar to that. I mean, let's face it, if you're a 20-something-year-old person right now, you were, or 20, late 20s, the Yankees won every year,
Right.
in the Jeter, Posada, Bernie, O'Neill years. I mean, so of course, if you're a kid, why when you're for the Yankees, you're going to win every year. So yeah,
Absolutely.
but a lot of those people have no connection to it. So you're right, though. You have to you have to have a connection here somehow, or else why else would you want to be a Met fan? Up until recently.
Yeah. And to me, it was kind of like a hard knock deal. It was like, look, man, my dad worked for the MTA for
Mhm.
34 years before he retired.
Yeah, yeah.
And the one thing I learned from the MTA is that nobody has a positive story about the MTA. Your hard
Mhm.
work will go unthanked. And well, the Mets were kind of like that, you know? Yeah,
Yeah,
they didn't win many championships. They won two, and one of them was literally called the Miracle. But they were the ones that opened the doors and had $5 David Wright nights, or they had
yeah,
family things, or they had Jewish Heritage Night. They tried everything to make sure they're part of the community, and that should not go without being
yeah,
thanked.
yeah. Bring your dog to the game. Those are always fun nights.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, what was the last time you went to City Field?
July 1st, 2023.
Oh, so pretty recently.
Yeah, I go back every year or so. I didn't go back last year because I was doing something with the Black Baseball mixtape with the Dubai thing
Uh huh.
with Baseball United. But yeah, I'm due to go back to City Field.
Now you got to reach out. We'll have to go to a game together.
Absolutely. Where do you sit usually?
Well, I haven't decided for this year yet, but the last 4 years I've had season tickets.
Okay.
So just two tickets. My daughter and I would go a lot. My daughter's really into it. We were section 310, so it was right behind, so middle halfway up, basically. Right, it's right behind first base.
Yeah, is that club level or no?
Yeah, I forget what level it's called. I had access to actually the Piazza Club.
Hey,
So
that's all about. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool because over last, when I first got season tickets 6, 7 years ago, my daughter was younger, so you get some perks.
Yeah.
So one year, and I'll send these to you if you want. I'll text them to you. One year, my daughter got to walk the rosin bag out to the mound right before the first pitch.
Oh wow.
So right on the field, like literally as she's walking off, they're taking the field. And then one time she got to interview a player before the game. So we're on the field. So it was cool. You got to watch batting packs on the field. And she interviewed a player. Then between the first or second inning, they put up a clip of her interview,
Oh,
like on the
nice.
scoreboard. So you don't get to pick what player. So she actually interviewed Paul Sewald.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so she asked them like 8, 9 questions, which she had to write. They approved them, and then they took one of those and they played it like I think between like the second inning or whatever on the big screen. So
Right,
yeah,
question for you then. So 5, 6 years. What's been your opinion of the Willapon Cohen exchange and the changeover and all that now going in the field?
I mean, it was frustrating being a Wilpon, a fan during that era because when you talk about the New York market and you talk about SNY contracts and you talk about all this stuff, and then I understand there could have been an aspect with the Bernie Madoff situation,
Sure.
and I understand that they're saying it didn't really affect them, but it had to have because you can't be a you can't be a New York market and be cheap. It's just not consistent.
Right.
I mean, the money that's available to you. You have a new stadium, which, by the way, City Field, and Yankee fans will say this too. City Field is 1,000 times nicer than the
Oh,
new Yankee Stadium.
absolutely. Yankee
I mean,
Stadium is a
the new Yankee
museum.
Stadium is just it's nothing. It's kind of like MetLife Stadium, and I'm a Giant fan, which is
Oh.
it's a bunch of cement.
Well, how does that work? Mets Giants?
Yeah, parents.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's my dad.
Bada
Yeah,
boom.
my dad grew up a New York Giant fan, and then
Okay.
when they left, he didn't have a team until '62.
Okay.
So I think he was already a Yankee, a Giant fan and so forth. So I just followed suit. I do root for the Jets though too, but gun to my head, I'm more of a Giant fan.
Okay.
But yeah, getting Cone in was, I mean, we're relevant again. You saw it this year with the contracts, and in the past, if they signed someone, you're like, all right, they're done because they can't. Now, they're out of the Alonso thing. Okay, they pivot and sign Minter and someone else, well, Winker, and then they still find $25 million. I mean, that just
Yeah.
wouldn't have happened.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
unfortunately, the way baseball is, I don't like it, but it's the reality of it. When you have a team like the Dodgers who could spend, what they could spend, if you want to have a chance, and there's fluke teams sometimes with a no payroll that kind of come through,
Right.
everything falls right. You have to spend the money.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. Like the Dodger Stadium is the closest stadium to me
Yeah.
now, living in Los
Yeah.
Angeles. I'll rather drive to Anaheim. I feel like it's most. I mean, I don't know if you drink, but I like a beer at the game. The most
Okay.
expensive place to drink a beer in all of baseball, $1.45 an ounce, is at Dodger Stadium.
Wow.
It's like really not for the common man the way
Yeah. Yeah.
that the Mets were as a kid. And
Yeah.
I went to Shea Stadium once. I was in the red section. Remember those where like
Yeah.
you were so far up, there was like a sound delay of what was
Yeah. Yeah.
happening on the
Yeah.
field, and to see that the team is actually being cool. I got a friend who lived in the Oakland area that started to pick up baseball a year and a half ago. Said, "I'm not going to root for the Athletics. I got him to be a Met fan," and that to me warmed my heart because there was a time when you couldn't do it. There would be no reason to it, but
No.
now it's a whole different thing.
And it's exciting because now they're getting guys who are there for a long time, guys who want to be there, and what makes it fun to watch is you get the feeling and that they genuinely enjoy each other and they enjoy playing.
Yeah,
Like I think Lindor's brought a whole level of
my
enthusiasm.
captain,
Yeah, there you go. And I think he will be at some point,
he should
the
be.
actual official. And I think he just brought a level of energy, and guys like Nimmo, just the hard running, and stuff like that. I was actually at Nimmo's first game. It's funny. It's just dumb luck how things go. I was at Nimmo's first game. I was at DeGrom's first game.
Wow.
It was funny, and that wasn't even that was before I had season tickets. Someone gave us tickets. It was a Subway Series game,
Okay.
and whoever the two main pitchers were supposed to be both got scratched. And DeGrom and I forget who was. You Google this, a Yankee rookie pitcher pitched. So it was two no names. I want to say the guy's name was like Whitney or Whitley. Well, and that was his first game. It was DeGrom started as a Subway Series game.
Yeah, it's funny because people ask me who's my favorite player on the team now, and there's so many different options, right? Marte was an all-star, and now I was never the biggest fan of Soto, but he's on the team now.
Yeah.
But back when AAA was in Vegas, I
Yeah.
would go out there. It's like 4 hours by car. It's like driving to
Yeah.
DC, and I saw Nimmo out there, and I was like,
Mhm.
well, you see like the indie band and the CD club before they get called up. I felt
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same way, so I have a soft spot for Nimmo, and the fact that he played through his injuries last season, man. I mean, I'm hoping a big season from him.
Yeah, hope it'll be exciting. I just heard, I don't know if you heard today, Montas got shut down for about 3 months.
Yeah, people are saying LOL Mets, but it's not the same thing as like the Bernie
No.
Madoff thing on the collapses. They knew that was going up. Next man
Yeah.
up. You got Blackburn waiting. You got Clay Holmes waiting. You got Minter
Yeah.
waiting. Like, it's fine. You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad it's kind of coming up. So what's on the horizon for you? Going forward in terms of professionally.
Yeah, man, just living under a bridge. You want to join me? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, one of the cool things about what I'm doing now with sports journalism, I'm a content creator for the Black Baseball Mixtape. It's a podcast and platform that looks for more of the Black perspective when it comes to baseball. And we've been able to do some great things.
So you don't want me as a guest, you're saying?
Oh, we will love you. That's the thing. But here's the thing. No, but I'm so glad you mentioned this because everyone goes, "Hey, what the hell? Where's the white baseball mixtape?" No, the idea.
You don't want the white Jewish bald perspective? Come on.
That's what I'm
That'll
saying.
get quite the following.
Hey, you and I both know, as guys in the tri-state area, the Black experience and Jewish experience are pretty similar. I love the Knish.
You're probably right.
Every poem, I'm like, I want like 60 Hamatashin, bro.
You're funny.
No, I'm just saying, like, the idea is that we're trying to find ways to get people back into the game because, like, wherever reasons, it feels like there's been a lean into other demographics, and so
Yeah.
I cut my teeth by going to every different ballpark. I've been to 24 of them. I'm going to 4 this season just to say, hey, look, if you fly into Milwaukee, see these sites, learn about the Brewers and what they're doing for the community, and then check it out. And so one of the new baseball leagues, Baseball United, which just had a league series this weekend in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, we've been able to be able to go out there and do content for them and get the name out for them. And so that's always fun. Also, Mets Digest, that's a YouTube channel that I'm contributing on. I do news updates every day or so just to give people more of a casual perspective of what's going on with the orange and blue. So it's a lot of fun, man, being able to push that. But as far as me, man, just making sure I'm in front of a microphone, ring announcing, master ceremonies, auctioneering, baseball. I'm your guy.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned about different stadiums. I'm actually going to be out in Seattle this summer.
You'll love it.
I looked it up, and I get lucky. The Mets that night play Seattle.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The problem is they're playing in Citi Field.
Oh. Well, the ballpark tours are great if you ever do those.
When I first saw it, I'm all excited. I'm like, oh. But yeah. So for a second, I felt really excited for that 1 minute.
Yeah, the ballpark tours are great. But this is why it started. The ballpark chasing thing is what they call it. There's a whole community on Facebook, ballpark chasers, to go to all 30 or whatever. It was a 22 season, the Buck Showalter 101 game winning season where it was the unbalanced schedule still. So the NL East played the AL West, and California had 5 teams. And so I went to all 5 and I go, I'm going to keep doing this. And I not necessarily see the Mets, but I'm going to every park and giving people news and notes of what to do when you get here, So it's been pretty fun. So thanks to the Mets for doing that. I'm seeing the Mets in Pittsburgh, my birthday weekend, which is the June 27th weekend this season. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, when I was out in California a few years ago, my daughter and I caught a game at in San Francisco. Just what a fun stadium that was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. San Francisco's a good one. Actually, one of my favorites, top 5. 2 seasons ago, I was in a commercial for Major League Baseball. They had an app called MLB Play. It had all these games on it, and I was
They had the bingo.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, I was in that. I was the guy. I was like, "Hey, fans, check out MLB Play." And one of the 3 places I got recognized in Tampa, Colorado, Denver, and San Francisco. So of course, I will always rank Francisco higher than those.
Those are your favorites.
Yeah, of course. Bada boom.
Oh, that's pretty funny. Yeah, no, I remember playing those apps at the game. Like you had to see what your game we got first, whether it was a double or this happened the first inning, a strikeout in the first inning.
Yeah, I was the pitch man for that.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. Well, listen, I've enjoyed talking to you. Talk about how people can find you on like all different social media platforms.
I'm so glad you asked. You can follow me on that Instagram at Flobito. That's FLOBITO. Every week I write a new sports comedy blog article at justthe.sandwich.com, justthe.sandwich.com. Learn my musings on baseball, Formula One, professional wrestling, and more. I'm there every week. Come say hi.
Perfect. Well, listen, really enjoyed talking to you. It sounds like as you've done in the past, you still got a hell of a lot going on. So, I wish you nothing but continued success.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And let me know where you get some good Hamantash next March. That's what I want to know.
I can't tell you the last time I had a Hamantash.
Come on, man.
I'll definitely let you know. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On-Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.